Hi everyone, welcome to Potluck Food Talks. Today I have a super VIP guest, my old friend Alejandro Cancino. He's probably one of the most technically talented chefs I've seen working. How are you, Alejandro?
Very good, very good.
So I met Alejandro like about 20 years ago, and I remember you told me so many crazy stories about how you ended up working in restaurants in Europe. Before, perhaps we can go through that. Sorry, you first won a culinary contest in Argentina, right? That was like kind of the beginning.
Yes, I was 15 years old and I was raised by a single mom. There was three of us, three kids. And, at the time, it was not very common to become a chef. At the time I was 15 and I remember seeing on a newspaper a culinary course. And I said to my mom, look, I would like to become a chef, And she said to me, okay, let's have a look on the different schools. And we ended up picking this one in particular because they had at the end of the 2 years course a scholarship to go to France. There was probably 280 people competing to get that scholarship. And I remember my mom saying, look, I'm paying for this. It cost me a lot and it's a massive effort. So I just want you to take it seriously. And I said, Mom, and I was 15 at the time. I said, Mom, in 2 years I will be in France. So boom. And France was the beginning. I did 3 months scholarship in a hotel. It was a school hotel. From there things evolved.
Was this the time you did not return to Argentina? You just walked out of the airport?
Yeah. So basically, after 3 months, my visa was 3 months only. And I remember at the time there was no internet. So it was a very different time. And I remember calling my mom and saying, look, Mom, I'm not going back. I'm actually going to the UK. I got friends there. So, and I have a job line up. So don't worry, I will be back in 6 months. I didn't have a job. I didn't know anyone. And I actually didn't speak any English. So, and I had no visa. So I just changed my return ticket and I flew to the UK, to London with $100 and nowhere to stay. So I stay I sleep outside an airport. For the first 3 nights, I sleep basically on the street. But finally on the third day, I got a show with accommodation. So yeah, I made it, let's say. I got offered, to kitchen hands roles. And I remember at the time saying, no, sorry, I'm looking for a chef role, not a kitchen hand.
It's funny because I remember some of these stories, and we were once working in a restaurant, and the manager comes and you go to the wine cellar. And why? Because you probably don't have any papers. And I was like, I just, I have a German passport, but you also go to the, and we were hid there in the wine cellar because there was probably coming some control or something.
Yeah. And that happened to me in the UK a few times.
You told me once a guy was deported who wasn't who had a different hiding place than yours.
Yeah, so that happened in a restaurant. We were working together with this Polish guy. The inspector came and I had to hide, and the other guy was picked up and was deported from the UK.
Then you ended up working in Mugaritz. Was that directly connected, or you were in some places before UK and Mugaritz?
No, after 6 months in the UK, I worked like in 3 different shops all at the same time. So the only day off I had, I was working on a restaurant. In the mornings, I was working actually doing sandwiches, and I saved enough money to go to go to any of these good restaurants. I applied for El Bulli and a few of the 3 Michelin-starred in Europe. No one responded, and then I flew to El Bulli and I went to the kitchen, and I remember at the time, Oriol Castro, he said to me, look, you're too young. I was 18 at the time. You better go to somewhere, to get a bit of experience, and then you can come back in a few years. And I said, okay, will you recommend me somewhere? And he said, look, there is this guy who started a few years ago a restaurant in the Basque Country, Andoni Luis, and I think he's gonna do really well. They got one Michelin-starred at the moment, and the place was Mugaritz. So I was lucky. I got there.
Yeah, this was what, 2002, 2003, something like that.
Yes, 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, and couldn't be better. I think it was a life-changing experience.
Yeah, Mugaritz was like a 3-year-old restaurant at the time, right?
Yeah, and then I did 3 months stage, like all chefs when you're young. And after the 3 months, I think someone in the section I was working, the chef de partie got sacked on the spot. And I was there and I remember Andoni asking me, can you run this section? I said, oh, yes. Definitely. I wasn't ready, but I was 19 when I started as a chef de partie in Mugaritz. So yeah, definitely wasn't ready, but I was so keen.
You made it to the sous chef position, right? Like in 3 years?
Yeah.
And how was that journey? I don't know. Tell me a little bit about the impact Mugaritz had on you. It's a super important place. Also for me, I think, probably one of the most impactful places I've worked for sure.
Yeah, I think, first of all, you are surrounded by people who are aiming to be really good at what they do. So then that means all the, at the time, young kids that were in the same room with you, working many hours, they are all now very successful chefs all around the world.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because, you may remember people that you were probably living in the same house and they are now big celebrities and very successful chefs. So that was amazing. And obviously all of that happened because of the, of Andoni and the core team there that had a vision of doing something special. And I think that marked myself and every other chef that gone through that kitchen. I think it's the impact that it had in my life. I think it was massive, to really aim for perfectionism. For me, it was like going to uni.
Absolutely. No, I think that these places are exactly like that. You told me once this story where this legendary Japanese chef Mibu came to eat the Mugaritz, and you were sous chef, and that day you had to be in charge. And can you tell that story? I remember it was really funny.
Yeah, I remember that, Mibu, one of the best chefs in Japan, he was coming to visit Mugaritz, and I had to basically prepare some traditional Basque recipes, which I never made. I remember 2 or 3 dishes that I had no idea. And yeah, I ended up doing something decent enough, but it was funny that someone that was representing the Basque Country had never cooked or eaten any of the food that was prepared for this special guest.
But then also, you told me like the guy fell asleep on the table because he had like a very long trip.
Yeah, basically the whole team were on the table and just falling asleep. It was a massive trip, and yeah, they really wanted to be there, but it was just too much for them.
And then you work like mainly meat and fish station, right? At Mugaritz.
Yeah, I did basically 2.5 years. The first, let's say, I think I was almost 6 months as an stagiaire, and then 1 year in fish, in meat first, and then fish, section.
Also the garden at the beginning, right? Like most people.
Yes.
I also was in the garden. That is a crazy experience to be in the garden in Mugaritz because they have this collection of herbs. I remember we were at the moment where I was in Mugaritz, I was making that dish, which was the Mugaritz garguillo, which had like, it was something crazy, like 40 different individual leaves and 12 different pieces of vegetables plus 12 petals of flowers, like a super crazy dish.
Such an amazing experience, to be in contact with all this good fresh produce, very good atmosphere. I had great memories. I think it was a very special time.
Then I remember, because at that time we were already friends and you left Mugaritz, you went to Mexico for a while. And then I remember I helped you draft a motivation letter for Manoir at Quatre Saisons like many, many years ago.
Yeah. So that was the next place after. So I flew to Mexico I stayed in Mexico for almost a year. And then I got a a visa, a job offer from the UK to work in Le Manoir Quatre Saisons. Yeah.
That's also one of the best restaurants in the world, right? Like, how was that experience?
It was very different in terms of, the pace. So it was a high pace. On my first week, I didn't know anyone, and I was putting in a section where you will be doing, 100 covers for lunch, 100 covers for dinner. There was no difference between Monday or Saturday or Sunday. It was 7 days a week open. It was way more intense. So many people say that if you've been trained in Le Manoir, you have a good pedigree, let's say. Mugaritz was, in my opinion, probably more refined, a little bit more...
more classic also, right?
Le Manoir is more classic. You get the foundation, right there. But yeah, very, very different experience. I remember on my first day, I've been told, all the bad words that you can imagine. And I remember thinking, why these chefs, they don't even know me, how can you call me all these words? Remember using tweezers on some of the dishes, and the chefs there were laughing at me. And they were betting on how long I was going to last. And they said, 2 days, a week. Because I didn't speak English. I was so lost. People were calling dockets that, I was supposed to be, reacting to that. And I was completely lost. So it took me a while, but then I think I done well there.
That's amazing. Yeah, you ended up there like junior sous chef, right?
Yes. 6 months on the job. I remember the executive chef, Gary Jones, he said, oh, look, there is this competition that I really want Young Chef of the Year. I really want one of the chefs in the team to win it. So he said, whoever goes into the competition and wins gets an instant promotion. So we did the regional. There was 4 states. There was 8 people per state. So I went to the regional with some of my co-workers, and I came first. So the top 2 from each state will compete then in London. And then I compete in London and I came first again. So next day I walked into the kitchen and, I got the promotion, and things changed a little bit from that day. There was a bit more respect. And the thing is, they were not used to, let's say, to nice chefs.
With a good attitude, you mean?
I was very, calm and I didn't swear. I had a much calmer and easygoing attitude. I got the job done. And I was obviously, rushing. Probably I also, I didn't take drugs. So that was a bit of a, I was married by then. So I was, I was 22 and I had a very different lifestyle. So yeah, I think everyone else seen that as a weakness. And I was probably, not too strong to the team. But then that gained me a lot of friends. And when I got to, a sous chef position, everyone was backing me and everyone wanted to do the best to make sure that, when I was running the past, let's say, I'm sure they felt more comfortable, less stressed, and that helped.
Yeah, I think that's very important in a kitchen. We talk about that a lot in a show, like these people that for some reason believe they're gods in the little world and gods and devils, and it's just, take it easy, control yourself. I remember also with you and Luca, who was also working at Mugaritz at the time, it was the first time I ever heard about Seiji Yamamoto. You were showing some videos at the time and you were planning to go there. Then I remember Luca had an accident. I don't know if did you end up going to Ryujin at some point or?
So I didn't actually work in Ryujin, but we did many collaboration dinners. I spent time in his kitchen. I actually, after Le Manoir, I went to Tokyo to work with Luca. Luca took an executive chef role in Bulgari.
He has become like he's one of you say that he has become like a celebrity and everything. Yeah.
He's a massive celebrity chef now there. He's got a family there. So he's and Luca is probably the chef who I had most fun with.
Because you were working in the line together in Mugaritz already. He was in the meat section and you in the fish section. So then you ended up running a restaurant together in Tokyo. That's amazing.
And in previous year, there was kind of a bit of a competition between who was in the meat section and in the fish section. When I was working with him, we had such a good time, and he made my time in Mugaritz much better.
How was Japan, man? It has to be crazy. I remember also when I met you, your dream, and we can also talk about that, was going to Tetsuya. Because for me, at the moment, like in the mid 2000s, he was one of the best restaurants in the world, maybe the best at some point. And I also remember getting and reading his book, which is very crazy because Australia, where you are right now, is a place that combines somehow Asian and European culture, and I think that is reflected in his cuisine, his kind of Chinese, Japanese, Italian, all mixed in a single dish. You can find that over and over again. Like, what can you say about him, about Tetsuya, and your dream about going there and everything?
Yeah, look, my plan was to go to Tetsuya after Mugaritz, and I remember at the time they say I sent emails and they told me no, because I didn't have a visa and they didn't want to, just bring someone when they didn't know me. Actually, I was really depressed after that because for me it was a dream to go to Australia. And when I was, I think, 12, I read this on the newspaper that Australia was one of the places where you can have a best lifestyle. And since then, it was kind of in my head. I want to end up in Australia. And when that door shut, for me, it was heartbreaking. So after Japan, obviously, I was still interested to go back to try again and apply for a job in Tetsuya. I didn't get to Tetsuya, but I finally got here to Australia. But it's funny now, the executive chef who's been there for the last, I think, 5 years, worked with me. He was my apprentice in Le Manoir Quatre Saisons. And then when I had my restaurant here, when I ran my restaurant here in Australia, in Brisbane, he was my head chef. So after being a head chef in Urbane, which was one of the top restaurants here in Australia with 3 hats, which is the highest ranking you can get, from there he went to run Tetsuya. So it's a small world.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I went to have dinner when he was running it, so yeah.
How was the experience of eating at Tetsuya? That's a place I would like to visit.
Yeah, look, so George, my friend, he was running it, and big part of the menu, apart from the classics, the trout and a few other items, a lot of the menu was his
creations, okay, or contributions, okay.
Or contribution, yeah, exactly.
So let's get into that. Then you come to Australia and you open Urbane in Brisbane. Was it a vegan restaurant?
No, actually, I didn't open it.
Okay.
It was a 2-headed restaurant, which is kind of, a good...
Already a very good level, yeah.
Yeah, a very good level. And it had the fine dining, which was a 30-cover restaurant, and then a bar and a bistro. So I was there for, in total, 6 years. We did the first, let's say, vegan menu. So we had 100% plant-based menu and the conventional one. At the time, it was probably too early. And we had a lot of people, obviously, I think it was a bit of a transition. Initially, it was 1-on-1. So you had 2 options. But then at the very end, even the meat or the omnivore option was probably 60% plant-based anyway. So even if you went for the omnivore option, there was so much veggie options, let's say.
But I think you would agree that maybe like the vegetables is something you have developed very much in your cooking. What can you say about that, about cooking with vegetables, or do you have any specific approach? Are you working with fermentations? Are you... Well, I guess like you have all kinds of techniques. I don't know. What can you share about that?
Yeah, look, I'm a vegan myself. So my idea was to, okay, how can we, if this is what I believe and I think is what we should be eating, how can we get the most out of vegetables and what techniques or what can we do to enhance the flavor? And there is a lot, and there is so much opportunity to to do a lot more, I think, on the space. And I hope more and more people focus on that, because there is so much talent out there that if that was used to improve, let's say, the plant-based offerings, it will be amazing.
And that's what you did afterwards, right? Now you're, what's your role? Co-founder, co-owner of a vegan alternative protein startup, right?
Yes. So I let's say my wife and I, so I'm the co-founder.
Okay.
We both started, kind of a on the side project. When I find out that I was going to have a baby, I decided, I didn't want to work the hours we normally spend in a kitchen. And I said, I want to be a present now. I want to, be there. And so I decided to open a plant-based meat company.
What are you offering? What's your main product?
Yeah, so we do meats, burgers, sausages, but we're expanding the range. And, we went from producing, 10 kilos a week and selling it to a restaurant to now we produce around 5 times a day. So
okay, yeah, I heard your. What's the name of your brand?
Fen Foods.
Yeah, I've heard it. It's quite common to find it in the supermarkets in Australia, right?
We are everywhere on the supermarkets, yeah, and we have good distribution, and we are number one in Australia. We can say.
Ah, that's amazing. That's super cool. And how was the change from a kitchen to a test kitchen, like a prototyping lab? Well, I guess you already worked before, like in R&D kitchens of restaurants. So I guess that the step wasn't that much of a jump.
Yeah, to be honest, my days nowadays, are 99%, in an office or in front of a computer. There is a very small amount of R&D work. I'm the CEO of the company, and I look at spreadsheets and have meetings all day. So it's a little more corporate and boring. Look, the background of a chef helps me a lot. Discipline, common sense. I don't know, the work ethics. All of that is still very important. And I do get once in a while to do some culinary stuff, which is obviously refreshing.
And what about not even like a small dinner or something just for friends, or not ever again cooking like a pop-up or something like that? Or
look, I became a chef because I like eating, so I do cook every day. But for example, at the moment, I would say my cooking time is split half on lunch boxes for my kids. And that's my everyday prep I need to do in the morning. And then I cook every day for the family. So yeah, I still, in terms of professionally cooking, I say I want to go back, but it will be in a very different format. And it will be at my terms, in most likely, a very small restaurant, but it will be once I kind of retire from the corporate world, let's say.
I also, when I was working in Bolivia, I had a shortly visit to Central in Peru. They invited me on an amazing menu, and then I was talking with the twins, the Valderrama brothers, and they told me, yeah, Alejandro, yeah, he came here. And we were super amazed because he walked into the kitchen and he started to like correct things we were doing. Like, you can do this like this. And we're like, we're doing this for the last 5 years. And this guy came with an improvement, like right at the moment. Like, what were you doing there? Were you like doing like a day stash, or what was it exactly?
Yeah. So I did a trip all around South America. And I remember when I was in Gus in Bolivia, I actually teach some of the guys how to sharpen their knife. And when I went to Central, obviously both restaurants amazing. Central blew my mind. It was amazing. The word is...
I really liked it. Yeah. I remember when I was there, I said, this restaurant could have 2 Michelin stars. And just recently they got in their Tokyo restaurant 2 Michelin stars, which is amazing.
For me, it's one of the the best restaurant I visited. The meal, I had 2 dinners there. Amazing. I was blown up. But there was, I remember they were doing this Bernois butter. And we used to do the same Bernois butter in Urbane. And they didn't. So when you do Bernois, you have the sediments, right? So they didn't pass the sediment. So when I had dinner the day before and I eat it and I had all the bits. And if that happened in Urbane, I will say to the guys, do it again. That's not right. And you don't actually put the whole beurre noisette. So you do half and a half. You leave butter out to get kind of melted or room temp.
Yeah, just to explain for the audience that perhaps don't know, beurre noisette is roasted butter. Basically, you put butter in a pan until it gets light brown and it smells like hazelnuts, and then you can let it settle again and use it like normal butter for your bread or this kind of thing. And it's amazing because it's roasted.
It's amazing. So what we were doing is, once you do the beurre noisette and you let it set, splits, and that butter is very hard to emulsify again. But if you take, let's say, half of butter room temp, and then you cut this beurre noisette butter into dices and you emulsify it all together, you have a very smooth butter with a beautiful beurre noisette flavor at the end, which is amazing. So I told them, because I had dinner the day before, and I noticed that, I say, guys, can I do the butter today for you guys? So, and I prepared it, and I said, check on this. I'm not here to tell you what to do. What you do is amazing, but it's a suggestion. And they taste it and they say, fuck, this is amazing. So they change in there, then and there. So
yeah, for me, that's amazing. I think good cooking is about hitting the right spot. It's not about having more effort or leaving more time or this kind of thing. It's just to know where to hit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, I'm not sure, but did you ever stash or visit like restaurants in the Nordic countries? I don't know. I have an idea. Were you at Noma at some point or?
Yes, I did 3 months in I think 2 or 3 months in Noma.
Okay.
That was an interesting experience.
What time was it? What year? Around?
It was 2000. Well, I mean 12 years here. So 2010. Probably 11.
Okay, because I just was doing a study on the New Nordic, and I can tell you that was exactly the time where it was starting to kick off like really hard. But at that time they were still, like struggling. Like,
which is amazing. I think it reminds me a lot of early days in Mugaritz, where you see the struggle and how they were really hands-on and getting there.
Mm-hmm. It's a crazy movement, what happened there. And we saw it in front of our eyes, like when we were in Mugaritz, that was just beginning. And now, boom, it was a culinary movement of the decade, for sure, of the 2010s. It's amazing.
Yeah. Let's see what's next.
That's it for this week's episode of Potluck Food Talks. If you like what we're doing, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok as Potluck Food Talks. The show airs every Monday.